The Booker Prize is literature's most prestigious, highbrow, fancy, la-di-da, big shit prize. It is so posh that I wore a tie for the occasion. I read the entire Booker Prize Longlist, and I don't recommend it. You probably don't want to. You just want the highlights. There are some really good books on the Longlist this year, and there are some really terrible ones. This Longlist is really varied. There is something for everyone, but also there's something everyone is going to hate. And I'm going to try and answer the 3 big questions you all want to know. What books are good? What books are bad? And what's Treacle Walker anyway? I'm going to identify the Booker Prize shortlist. That's right. I'm not going to predict it. I'm going to identify it. And the winner. Last year, I predicted 5 of the 6 shortlisted books, and I got the winner correct. This year, I'm going one better, 60% guaranteed. 5 judges read 160 books and picked these 13 novels as the cream of the crop, which is a stupid expression because cream comes with milk. It doesn't come in crops, unless it's an oat cream. It must be a vegan long list. We're going to go through the long list book by book in order that it was announced backwards, which means we're starting with Booth by Karen Joy Fowler. Karen Joy Fowler's historical fiction is about the Booth family, a family which includes John Wilkes Booth. Pros: it wasn't one of these super long Hilary Mantel-esque historical fiction novels. Cons: it felt like it was. Fowler includes her own moralistic voice condemning slavery and racism, instead of demonstrating what she thinks she is telling, not showing. You kind of think, Karen, all you needed to do was include a black character. Then you could have just shown us why slavery was bad instead of simply stating it. It would have been a better book. At the end of the book, Karen Joy Fowler includes a note to let you know what her intentions were, and their intentions which she failed to deliver upon in the novel. The suspense in the plot relies on the outcome of a well-known historical event. Who would like this? People who don't know John Wilkes Booth killed Abe Lincoln. In the unlikely event that was you, sorry about the spoiler. I think this is just a terribly executed book. My rating is 1 star. This is not just a poor book for me. This is a genuinely poor book. O. William by Elizabeth Strout. This is the 3rd book in Elizabeth Strout's Amgash series, a series which contains My Name is Lucy Barton and Anything is Possible. I am going to declare my bias here. I sit firmly in the no sequels on the long list camp. Do I go out and read the first 2 books or just skip them? The first 2 books are not being judged, but did the judges read them? Do I need to know anything from the earlier books? Will my reading experience be improved by reading those novels or not? For the record, I read the first 2 books and you don't need to. But you're either going to enjoy this book, in which case, why wouldn't you read My Name is Lucy Barton? Or you're not going to enjoy it, in which case, My Name is Lucy Barton is the shorter novel. This is not a book you can spoil. It's a character portrait, an examination of the lasting psychological effects of poverty after our protagonist is financially stable. It is also the examination of an aging friendship between Lucy and her ex-husband, the titular William, in the aftermath of the death of David, Lucy's second husband, while William is going through quite a tough period in his own life as well. There are so many traits of this novel that really polarize the readers. It is plotless. It is quite a sad novel, and it does spend a lot of time with characters when they're at their worst. It is a novel strong on themes and setting, however, I found it difficult to connect with the characters, and the writing is only so-so. Those 2 facts really held the novel back, and I thought it could have been much better. O. William wasn't for me. I gave it 2 stars, but it isn't a bad novel. I recommend it to fans of authors such as Rachel Cusk or Jhumpa Lahiri. The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida by Shehan Karunatilaka. Maali Almeida has just died, but you don't realise it yet. But you're in the afterlife and about to be processed. You are also a closeted homosexual man. This book is written in the second person, so if you've had trouble with me using the second person in the last couple of sentences, then this book isn't for you. The afterlife framework is used to be very socially critical of Sri Lanka, especially the long-running civil war. It is a genre-defying novel which is part speculative, part satire, part historical, magical realism, humorous, and fantasy novel. Prose. This book is hilarious. It taught me things about Sri Lanka, and it has some strong and thought-provoking themes. Cons. It is too slow-paced. There isn't enough between the highs of this book to keep you interested, and it's confusing. The combination of flashbacks, viewing the world from the afterlife, and the general weird shit happening in the afterlife, it's hard to keep track of what is happening where and when. It is a very loose novel, and it's a novel without explanation. And you have to accept what's going on. You really have to keep track of a lot. It is not a light book you can let wash over you and enjoy. Who would like this? I would call this book the Sri Lankan Midnight's Children, and I think Salman Rushdie fans would love this novel. What are my thoughts? I DNF'd this. It was very, very good in places, but it was too far between those points. I needed to have this book be my sole focus, and I wasn't interested enough in it to have it be my sole read. Despite the DNF, it certainly wasn't the worst book on the long list. Trust by Herman Diaz. 4 books in one. Trust is a book about money and trust, misplaced trust. It also follows an investment banker. I didn't finish this book, and to be completely honest, I never should have started it. This is an ideas novel, not a characters novel, and the ideas have been done before and done much better. Pros, I really honestly don't have any. Cons, the writing is flat and unimaginative, and so too are the characters. The characters are honestly terribly drawn. If you're at all into characters, skip this one. If you like Bret Easton Ellis but wished he toned down all the fucked up stuff, then give this book a shot. But who likes Bret Easton Ellis? The Trees, Percival Effort. A black man and a white man are found murdered together. The black man has the white man's severed testicles in his hands. I've got to say this is an interesting premise. And then we have all sorts of other interesting ideas. Dead bodies that are moved. Black FBI agents. FBI agents. Black people are not scared of white people. And what might that look like in a society? But I really feel like Everitt has all these great ideas he wanted to put into a novel and then didn't know why they were in there or what they were bringing to the novel itself. There is a lot of humour in this novel, but I'm not sure it's funny.
Bro, are you kidding me? His severed testicles are in the other guy's hands. They're in his hand.
Yeah, I understand the location of them, but why is that funny?
Dude, testicles in his hand.
Yeah, I'm still lost. Was it a juggling accident?
Come on, man. You don't juggle testicles. You wash them regularly and you keep them out of harm's way.
Sorry, is the joke that they're testicles?
Bro, I knew you'd get it.
Yeah, it's just not that funny.
How would you make it funny?
You don't happen to have a blonde wig available, do you? I think part of my issue with the humour was cultural. Humour involves something of the unexpected, and that's why taboo words are often humorous.
So, you're saying that testicles aren't funny? I don't get it.
Every Australian born between 1975 and 2008 grew up with a father who combined remembering his essentials before leaving the house with the directions of the genuflection by saying spectacles, testicles, wallet, watch, even if they weren't short-sighted. We're pretty much immune to testicles as a source of humour.
What could possibly be funnier than testicles? They're testicles.
Penis boobies, scrote pouch, taint lumps, man cabbage, frog's eyes, watermelon if you're confident or in need of medical treatment, and the obvious outdoor ass plugs.
Why is it outdoors? Who's using it as a plug?
Before this conversation descends into madness, I want to say that this novel is funny, but in my opinion, the humour is much, much weaker than in the Seven Moons of Maali Almeida or in Glory. The plot is open-ended and a lot of things are not resolved. The setting is a caricature of a Mississippi town full of rednecks and racists. This can make it seem surreal. The characters are kind of well drawn, but they don't take anything seriously, and as a result, they don't seem real, especially when they bump into this surreal setting. They're very hard to get into the head of. And all of this has a point, but you have to decide if it's worth it for you. I think Percival Effort has cooked a chocolate cake and then said, should I add whipped oat cream on the side or testicles? Well, both work really well. I know, I'm going to cover it in mustard. Treacle Walker, Alan Garner.
Hello, possums.
What are you doing here?
I don't know, I just show up when you want to act like a pair of scrote fruit.
This is definitely the right part of the video to act like the dog's favourite sniff toy.
What are we discussing today?
Alan Garner's novel Treacle Walker.
Could we just review the trilogy by Beckett instead?
Why would we do that?
Because it's also complete nonsense, but Beckett's funny.
But it's not on the long list.
I know, but we could just say anything because Treacle Walker is utter nonsense. That just says anything and nothing.
I thought it was a really boring exploration of time and our perception of reality, combining ancient mythology with quantum physics into a child's narrative that was influenced by Alice in Wonderland and Ulysses that ultimately didn't try to say anything.
I know my name.
I think you're still on the Beckett.
I told you, just as much nonsense, but better. Also, there's a woman in the trilogy. I feel seen instead of randomly excluded because I don't own a pair of donkey stones.
Look, I think we've got about as much mileage out of the testicle things as possible.
Yeah, I don't find testicles a funny word. Try merkin chin nuts or inactive panda parts instead.
This novel is weird. It feels like a stream of consciousness novel, but lacks the intellectuality of James Joyce or Samuel Beckett. This is what Enid Blyton may have written if she were on an acid trip. It doesn't really say anything. It isn't thought-provoking, and there are actually no characters.
Sure there are. There's Fred, or whatever he's called, and Honey Jogger.
Not characters, simply things that are present.
This is a great one for people who loved Samuel Beckett's Molloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable, but want something simpler and less challenging.
And anybody who hasn't read those books, don't worry. If they were the sort of literature that you would like, you'd definitely have already read them. This was terrible. 1 star.
I just have one question.
Oh, what's that?
What is my name?
Case study. Graeme McCrae Burnett. You're still here?
Do you want me to be here?
I don't see how that's relevant.
I can only assume you want me here. Can I get inappropriately close to you?
I don't know whether to be scared or turned on. Rebecca thinks psychologist Colin Braithwaite is responsible for her sister's suicide and records her experience in a series of notebook. This is interspersed with research our author Graeme McCrae Burnett has done on Braithwaite's life. You might be thinking, that's not actually a work of fiction, and hence it shouldn't be eligible for the Booker Prize. And you're right, but that's meta-analysis. Like reading a horror novel and saying, it's fine, I've still got 150 pages left, our protagonist isn't going to die a horrible death just now. This book is tackling questions of the nature of self, reality, and sanity. What is real and simply what is? The blurring of fiction and non-fiction is part of this, and a quick little bit of Googling will tell you if Braithwaite was a real person. This book is broken into a first-person narrative from the point of view of Rebecca and a third-person narrative about the life of Braithwaite. And I don't think I've ever seen a bigger gap in the quality of writing by one author. The first-person sections with Rebecca are engaging. These third-person sections about Braithwaite, boring. And while the blurb states that Braithwaite is charismatic, he is not. He's completely unlikable. And the choice of a factual third-person narrative is incorrect. It doesn't allow me to understand the thoughts or motivations of Braithwaite. There is nothing to make you invest in him. Why would any reader care about this utterly detestable man? Fortunately, the sections with Rebecca are significantly longer. But there is something with this book that really bugged me. It was the sexual tension between Rebecca and Braithwaite. It didn't add anything or link in with the rest of the book. It just felt sleazy. And it's one of the reasons why I didn't like Braithwaite. Pros: the ideas and themes, the first-person writing and the setting were all great. Cons: the third-person section, the characters and the plots were not great. This book will divide audiences, and I gave it 2 stars. The shortlist. When announcing a long list, it is normal for a book prize to order the selection in an alphabetical order, either by author's name or by book title. The Booker hasn't done that this year, which leaves us to question, how is it ordered? And I've got a theory that the order hasn't been sorted, that this is the order that the judges wrote the books down in. I envision 5 judges sitting around a meeting room table with a whiteboard. One judge says, "Do we all agree that case study is on the list?" 3 judges say yes, 2 judges say no. Then the yeses say, "I'll let you have Treacle Walker if you give us case study." It's accepted. Both books are added to the long list. We have books 7 and 8. Hence, I think the further down the list, the more likely there was to be a disagreement about the book, which I think means that the first 6 books on the list are likely to be the shortlist. And that is the reason I've been going through the list in reverse order, because I believe that the next 6 books will be the shortlist. Legitimately though, conspiracy theory aside, this is the shortlist that I picked. That they were the first 6 named is also an excellent coincidence. Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies. Maggie Mortimer. Maggie Mortimer's mother died of cancer when she was 14, and this is the basic story of this novel. It comes with a very clear and obvious content warning. It's not just a content warning, it's advertising the type of book it is. It's sad and emotional. Actually, it's devastating. For this book to work, the characters need to work. You have to invest in the characters. And it's so easy to see who Iris and Leah are because they're Mortimer and her mother. She knows who she's writing. Mortimer also uses a playfulness of word placement, changing the position or size of words. Yes, it's a gimmick, but it adds tone to the writing. It provides you with something more. It works. It's not revolutionary. The book does not hinge on it. And I think far too much has been made of this and not enough of Mortimer's exquisite writing. Mortimer has so many themes in this novel. Some of them, religion and death for example, are really obvious, but others are less clear. What is family? I'm really impressed by how everything fits together. This book feels like a Mary Poppins bag in reverse. How does everything fit into it? There is so much. This is an emotional novel. You have to invest in the story of a woman's struggle with cancer. You have to invest in her daughter and what that loss will do to her. And that's not something I think every Booker Prize reader will do. This personally is one of the best books I have read all year. This is the book I want to win the Booker Prize. It is clearly a 5-star read, but it is very much a Scott book. If you liked Shuggie, Bain, Unsettled Ground or Mayflies, this is a good book for you. Night Crawling by Layla Motley. Layla Motley is the youngest ever Booker Prize nominated author, smashing the record by 6 years. It is so nice when a new literary talent just announces itself. Motley can write. Let's hope this is the beginning of a 50-plus year writing career. Kia is a young black woman living in poverty when one day she sleeps with a man and he pays her for it. Being broke, she doesn't turn the money down. Instead, she embraces a life of night crawling over the alternative, homelessness. Kia ends up with the police, being exploited and abused by them and their power. This is a simple novel that is asking you to do one thing: care about Kia. Something I found very easy to do. Once you do that, there are some glittering scenes. The pool, the gun, the mother. This for me isn't the type of book that comes to mind when you say Booker Prize. I'm going to use a term that I think is often used negatively. Know that I love this book, but it's book club fiction. It has a little for everyone. The writing is accessible but nice. There is plot, themes, characters, and setting, all evenly balanced, all well done, without anything standing out. It is a real all-rounder novel. You would like this novel if you liked books such as The Vanishing Half, Such a Fun Age, or Silver Sparrow. I really enjoyed my time with this book and just recommend it as a good read without worrying about whether it will or won't win the Booker Prize. Small things like these, Claire Keegan. This is a very simple but beautiful novel, which, I'll be honest with you, I was surprised to see on the Booker longlist. It's very short. It's not very complex. It's not layered. It's not sophisticated, but it is written with such an effortless beauty. If you like nice writing, a really enjoyable and emotionally driven plot, and simple but well-drawn characters, this is a book for you. This book is the shortest book ever nominated for the Booker Prize, and it really does blur the line between short stories, novellas, and novels. I really struggle to see who would dislike this book. I didn't think this book would be nominated, but now that it has been nominated, it is so hard to see it not getting shortlisted. Glory by NoViolet Bulawayo. A lot has been made of NoViolet Bulawayo's reimagining of George Orwell's classic novel Animal Farm, as if it were inspired by the recent Zimbabwean coup which deposed Robert Mugabe and not the Russian Revolution, the African Animal Farm. It is an accurate description, but let's be clear, it's marketing. And you shouldn't let that colour your opinion of this book. Bulawayo's style is different to Orwell. It's modern, it's playful, but mostly it's hilarious. She is, however, as socially critical of government and power structures as Orwell was, and she does have a simple accessibility to her writing style, like Orwell did. You don't need to know anything about Zimbabwe or George Orwell to appreciate this book. Bulawayo isn't really talking about Zimbabwe anyway. She's talking about corrupt and incompetent governments controlling a population through fear and dishonesty. And she's using Zimbabwe as an example. And she is both scornfully and mockingly treating governments everywhere, but Zimbabwe and the USA mostly, with the respect they deserve. If you know nothing about Zimbabwe, this really will fill in the gaps of the recent history. The novel was a personal joy to read, but if Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies is exactly the sort of book I love, then Glory is exactly the other sort of book that I love. And I'm not sure if it's a book for everyone. I'm not sure really what's wrong with people who don't like Glory. I mean, other than bad book taste. But if you enjoyed Catch-22, Candide, A Confederacy of Dunces, The Master and Margarita, or the works of Oscar Wilde, then I recommend this novel to you. After Sappho, Selby Wynne Schwartz. The structure of this book is weird, and that will put some readers off and delight others. This book is told in a series of brief vignettes. Vignettes seem to be a word used by a lot of people when discussing this book. Now, a vignette is a brief but evocative description. Their penis boobies bounced as they descended the stairs at a canter. The need for coffee was urgent, and enough that they had forgotten their pants. I'm not sure why, but the amplitude of the gonad wave is larger when the vehicle they're attached to is descending stairs. Ascending stairs produces barely a ripple, but descending stairs and there is danger of a scrotal-induced concussion. Why do women always write men like that? After Sappho jumps around a lot and it's not really saying anything at any point, but rather creating a deeper picture that says a lot. And what it does say is deeply feminist, a portrayal of different women, some famous, some not. This is a highly experimental novel, which, to be honest, I'm not sure is even fiction. It doesn't seem to remind me of any novel I've read before, but it does remind me a lot of collections of poetry, except that it is prose and not poetry. But you know those collections of poetry that might be about something like identity and includes things like letters that their great-grandparents wrote to each other and a photo, and it all weirdly comes together to make something greater than the sum of its parts. That's what this book is like, except obviously it is prose and not poetry. But nonetheless, that is who I would recommend this book to, readers who enjoy poetry collections. This book didn't work for me. It jumped around too much and it wouldn't let me settle with a character. The individual characters were not really important to the themes and I didn't really get a sense of them. I DNF'd this book. The Colony, Audrey Maggie. Two men, one an English painter, the other a French linguist, choose to work on an island off the coast of Ireland in a small community that still speaks Irish. This is set during the Troubles, but out of the way of danger. There are two islanders who are central to this plot too, a mother and son combination. The mother is looking after the two men while they're on the island, and the son is an aspiring young painter. This book is really about colonialism, how the Irish culture has been affected by the English culture, but also broader things and narrower things. Things which I will leave you to discover for yourself. There is a feminist sub-theme, and I think that the ending of this book, what happens to May Read at the end, is something that has really stayed with me. I think about it. Does it intersect with the colonial themes and ideas or not? This feels like a Booker winner. It is another book where the themes and ideas are stronger than the characters. But in this book, the characters are still vivid. The book has a powerful setting that really comes through. It is very isolated, but it doesn't feel completely cut off, and the plot is continually interrupted by news from the mainland. A car bombing, so-and-so has died, and you wonder, will these events impact our isolated community? I think this is the sort of book that has wide appeal. At times the plot was sluggish, so avoid it if you like fast-paced books. This book also could be a little too plain for some readers. Personally, I enjoyed it, and I recommend it to readers who also liked Milkman. Who will win? We have our shortlist, and it's time to predict a winner. Before I predict the winner, I just want to acknowledge what a lot of you will already be thinking. This year's real winner is Testicles. I don't believe Nightcrawling will win. Very enjoyable book and an amazing debut, but in comparison to the other 5 books, it doesn't stand out. There is plenty of time for Motley. She is a young writer who will only get better. I hope she wins the Booker Prize, but I don't think it will be in the year 2022. Similarly, Small Things Like These doesn't stand out either. Another great book. But it did what it did, and that's all it did. So I think the last 4 books are all potential winners. But when I think about the winners, and when I really get down to what wins Booker Prizes, the winner needs to do something new or something better than anybody else has ever done. And when I mentioned Anna Burns' Milkman, it seemed obvious to me that The Colony wasn't going to win. After Sappho has taken some big risks, it could be rewarded, but I struggle to see every judge agreeing on this one. That leaves us with 2, Glory and Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies. Glory is writing back to literature. It's recognising Orwell, but Maps is also doing that to Max Porter. Glory is hilarious, but Maps is devastating. Glory is tackling large, important issues. Maps is tackling personal and important issues. Both books include some experimental writing, but are not defined by it. But I think one of these books is slightly more cohesive than the other. So the book I think will win the 2022 Booker Prize is Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies. If you'd like to watch my review on Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies, click here, or Glory, click here. Bye-bye.
Yay, Maps of Our Spectacular Bodies!